Assalamu alaikum, everybody. Welcome to our interview today with Dr. Monzer Kahf. We are going to be discussing COVID-19 and the impact on the global economy and how Islam can help. Just to introduce you to our guest, which is Professor Dr. Monzer Kahf. He is a professor and a consultant trainer on Islamic banking finance, and he is also a professor of Islamic finance and economics at the Faculty of Economics and Management, Istanbul Sabahattin Zaim University in Turkey. Welcome, Dr. Monzer Kahf. It's our pleasure to have you here with us today. And we do have some questions to ask you regarding, obviously, the global pandemic that's going on and what is happening to our global economy and how Islam can help. First of all, how serious is this crisis and its expected impact on the economy and lives of the people around the world? And how does it compare with the financial crisis of 2008-2009? Is it worse or not?
Okay. Well, first, thank you very much, and for you personally, and also for the about Islam for this. And I think it's an opportunity to be with you again and again. And Ramadan Mubarak to you and to the people who are listening or who are with us. Now, definitely, this is the most serious crisis that happened in our lifetime, in my lifetime, I should say it. I was born in 1940, so it may end up to be a lot worse than even the 1929-30 crisis. So definitely it's a lot worse and a lot and more effectful than the 2008 crisis. This is a crisis in the real economy. This is a crisis that it is expected that the GDP, the gross domestic product, in several countries may go by 1/3. That's unbelievable amount. That's a huge amount. Go by 1/3 down. That is a huge amount. So it is expected in some countries that it may go like is one of them. US is a little better than that, but it is definitely is going to be more than 20% in the US decline in the gross domestic product. Now already for now almost 2 months, almost everything is closed. I mean, economy is kind of completely, and the food chain is being interrupted now in America. So it is a serious crisis, very serious. The number of unemployment that is already there, well, definitely quite few of these will go back quickly to work, but it will not recover quickly. It will take at least now a year or two until we go back to some new normal, not to the old normal. The old normal had many defects. I mean, this crisis definitely exposed our economy to the weaknesses that we have. Our economy worldwide, because worldwide is dominated and run and led by the Western capitalism. So it showed a very big flaw in our economy, in our economic thinking. For many years, at least since the late 80s until now, we have been thinking that we can create wealth in the finance sector. So we neglected the medical sector, we neglected really the food sector even. We neglected everything because we thought finance can create wealth. Well, the reality is that finance does not create wealth. If finance is devoted, is completely used to support the real economy in production and exchange, then it helps create wealth. Wealth is created in the real economy by people who works in factories and in farms and in shops. This what creates real wealth. We thought, I mean, I look at the defect that we have in the medical protection supply, how defectful turned out to be the American economy in this. Now, many countries, even countries whose economy is probably less than 1/10 or 20th of the size of the American economy, are helping America in medical supplies. I mean, it's a pity. It's really a pity. We diverted our resources in the wrong direction for quite some time. And this is where we need really to re-divert resources. Our best intellectuals were working in the finance, making research about forecasting the interest rate and forecasting the future prices. Well, future prices and future commodities do not put food on the table. That's the final thing. That's the reality that this crisis exposed clearly. And here where I believe Islamic finance and Islamic economics has a role to this kind of wake up. Now, I mean, this COVID-19 came as a wake up message. And we wake up, then instead of investing in Bitcoins and in options, we invest in real new companies, in creating new companies, in real IPOs, new shares being issued, new companies established for agriculture, for industry, for trade, for exchange, for everything, not to deal with Bitcoins and options and futures. So this is the real message that we can take from this crisis, but it's going to be deep and it's going to stay with us for at least 2 to 3 years.
May Allah protect us, inshallah. Are there general guidelines from the fields of Islamic economics and Islamic finance that could help the world overcome the economic and financial sides of the COVID-19 global crisis?
Well, now we are realizing that we need, even though with the social distancing, now that we added, but we need really social, spiritual closeness that helps us in understanding that we really need to help each other. If we don't help each other, we will not survive even physically. And for instance, I am now in a home, kind of home confinement like everybody else. Unless there are other people who help me, even bringing us our food, we can't really survive. So help each other even physically, but also financially. The Islamic economics and Islamic finance, but now I want to talk more about economics. For at least in the modern time, for the last 50, 60, 70 years, we've been shouting that social justice is important, that we need institutions for social justice. The Islamic tradition provided the awqaf concept. Now, awqaf for many areas in the Muslim lands were so rich that they were owning major part of the resources of production. It is estimated that in Egypt, at the time when Muhammad Ali came in 1805, the country had about 1/3 of its agricultural land was all awqaf. Awqaf means foundations, endowment. The output of these lands were assigned for social services, for social help, for taking care of the poor and needy and so on. So when you imagine that 1/3 of the land, and again, Cairo, for instance, as a city, or Algeria as a city, the city of Algeria in Algeria, or Damascus, or Istanbul, about 1/3 to 1/2 of their buildings were all awqaf. That means that all this rent of these buildings go for social work, for helping each other. Now you can imagine, we did not only help people, we created ideas in this awqaf, the concept of awqaf, that helps the environment, that helps even animals. In Damascus, for instance, we have a waqf. I was born in Damascus. We have a waqf in Damascus for undesired home cats. If you have a cat at your home and for some reason became old or lame or anything happened, that it becomes a burden on you. You don't want it anymore. You go and put it in that place. It is called the collector or the gathering of cats. So you get cats, put it there, and then there is another endowment that spend on these cats, bring them their food until they die. This has been historically was established several centuries ago. I personally visited that place. No more used for cat because the government confiscated it and took over, which is unfortunate. It's no more for cat, but it was for cats. Now, we have created things in this awqaf concept of social care that are beyond, sometimes I may think of them as beyond imagination. In Cairo, for instance, there was a waqf, an endowment, especially to hire persons, two people, to chat, to give a kind of spiritual boost to a terminal patient in the hospital. A hospital is a patient on a hospital bed, and it was declared terminal. He was going to die within a few days or a few weeks. You hire two people from the awqaf, paid for by the endowment. This endowment will pay them. They stand near his head, claiming that they are talking to each other and he doesn't hear them. But actually they make their voices heard by the patient, and they chat together. This patient is going to improve, is coming out of the hospital soon, is responding to medicine, and so on, just to boost his spirit, to give him better feeling only. There was waqf for that. So we have awqaf. In Istanbul, they had a waqf, which is interesting, was for wild, vicious animals in the mountains. In winters, these animals used to, as usual, as it happens now in America, they come close to the cities searching for food. So instead of coming close to the cities, to the villages searching for food, there was a special waqf to get meat, put it in the in mountains where we expect these wild animals are there, and put them food there so they don't come and come closer to the villages. Protect villages by giving them food in their own places, because in winter they don't find food. So the awqaf was so rich. We had in Istanbul and in Damascus, and in fact, even in Muslim Spain, when Muslims were in Andalusia, we had a cash waqf. Cash waqf is to give loans free of interest to any businessman, small businessman, of course. This is for microfinance and small and medium businesses. Give them loans. If they have any financial trouble, you give them loan free of interest for a few months, or maybe it goes for a few years. We had waqf for that especially, and it was kept as cash for waqf. There are some records that tell us that around the end of the past the 1800th century, just before the fall of the Ottoman Empire, there were more than 450 cash waqf in the city of Istanbul alone. Now, later on, these cash waqf were collected all in a big fund under what is called the ANAT, which is like Ministry of Islamic Affairs or Ministry of Awqaf and Islamic Affairs. And they founded in the early 1950s, out of these funds, they founded Waqf Bank in Turkey, which is now the third largest bank in Turkey. From these funds, they called it Waqf Bank because these funds came from the cash waqf that people put aside for giving interest-free loans. Unfortunately, the Waqf Bank is interest-based, not interest-free. But recently, over the last 7-8 years, it made a branch which is interest-free. And we hope all the bank will be converted, because that's the right of those who founded it, those who left the money for that objective. It is their right to respect our ancestors. They are dead now, of course, all of them, but they are our ancestors, and their will was to make it like a bank without interest. So when we collect all this money and put them as a bank, what I mean to say that we created institutions, strong institutions for social justice. We need that now more than any time in the past. And that showed really that having less care about each other is, in the final analysis, hurtful for everybody. So social justice was very important. In the Islamic economic system was very important. Muslim implemented it historically in a beautiful way, but later we kind of neglected all this wealth, let it be, wasted. There is a report at the turn of the 1920 century, that is about 120 years ago. There are reports that there was in the city of Jerusalem alone about 105 or 106 free schools that are free, all supported by the Awqaf. All. Until 1967, when Hebron al-Khalil, in the city of al-Khalil, which is called in English Hebron, was occupied by the Israelis in 1967. Until that time, there was a waqf in Hebron, in al-Khalil. That waqf was to give bread, distribute free bread and free food, a special kind of cooked food. It's called kushari. The Egyptians know it very well, kushari. And until in 1967, they used to distribute, 1967, that's as recent as when the occupation, Israeli occupation confiscated that waqf. They were distributing every day 13,000 loaf of bread free. every day. So the Awqaf were really, they made good part of the national economy in all these Muslim countries that are old in Islam. Now they are taking up again. There are many universities, several universities, I should say, at least 3 universities that I know of. I visited 2 of them personally in Indonesia that were established recent, and they were essentially free, financed by Awqaf. One of them has more than 10,000 students. It's not a small university. Okay. And it has even graduate studies and PhD student program in the city of Gentor in Indonesia. And this is a new work that was established about 40, 50 years ago only. So the concept of social justice is very important. And now we start thinking again about it. Definitely our capitalist capitalist system has to have a turn toward in the direction of the Islamic economic system, giving more attention to social care, giving more attention to health, giving more attention to producing really food and other human needs, medical, etc., rather than playing gamble type of transactions in finance, on speculating on finance.
I think that is really interesting, and I think me personally never knew any of that. So I think a lot of our audience also will find that very interesting, because you can see from what you've described just how important that is in general, but especially at a time like this. Subhanallah, jazakallah khair. What can governments do to alleviate this crisis till the lockdown is lifted and beyond? Because obviously, as you said, this is going to go beyond maybe 2 or 3 years. So
yeah, of course, it's not going to be quickly. I mean, I hope that the lockdown will be lifted soon. But even if it is lifted soon, to go back to the new normal will take months and years, not only months, definitely. So governments, I should say, in fact, we started wising up. Most governments in the world starting social program and help, especially to these small and micro businesses. They gave them more attention. Now, every economy, really the backbone of any economy, starting with the United States, small and medium and small businesses make 60% of the American economy. So American GDP is produced here by the small and medium business, not only by the big factories, by Boeing and Chevrolet or Exxon. Definitely, these are the producers. These are those that put food on the table for about 60% of our families in the United States. So, and that applies to other economies. I mean, think about Turkish economy. Definitely, we have more than that. About 80% of the Turkish economy is medium and small enterprises. So in all these economies in the whole world, government started wising up, in fact, in this crisis. It was good that they made these stimulus programs. All government have them now, and there are stimulus programs in everywhere, practically. And those countries that did not start it yet, they are coming in. So what is mainly needed is to focus especially on the medium and small enterprises. These are the ones that provide employment, and these are the ones that provide the largest portion of the economy. And these are the ones that are hurt most in this crisis. So focusing on them. Grants, it's not enough really to give loans. Some programs came as giving loans without interest for 6 months, and in some countries they go up to 6 years. But really we need grants to be given. Of course, this has to be financed from now borrowing from the public or from financial institutions. It is better really to borrow from financial institutions at this stage than to borrow from the public by issuing new bonds, because that may hurt the economy in the longer run more. So what I call on governments to provide grants and free loans to small and medium enterprises to come back to running the economy again, and then continue supporting medium and small enterprises until we come back to a new normal. The new normal won't be at all like the previous normal. We will not come back to the way, for instance, United States was in December 2019. Now we passed that stage. Definitely, there will be a new norm. We will have to come back to the social closeness rather than distancing. But anyway, we need to do that slowly, but we need to do it with social care, with changing our mentality that we need really to take care, to carry with us those who are unfortunate among us financially. Unless we do that, then it will be a big problem. And I can see signs that some governments are starting rising up in this direction. Including, I should say, yes, definitely now the two programs and the third one that is coming now from the Congress are of good health. One caution that should be there, which is unfortunate, I mean, always there was a statement by the late Sheikh Ali al-Tantawi, who was really famous and has influence on all Arab listeners and readers, because he wrote a lot and he had also television program for quite some time. So he has a statement. He said, the best constitution, if you have bad people to implement it, it will end up bad. The effect will not be good. So we need good constitution and also good people to implement. Now we started having in the United States, especially, talk that many of these funds are going to the large companies rather than the medium and small enterprises. There are serious criticism of this kind of thing. Instead of giving the small and medium enterprises, we are giving them to large companies, which is very unfortunate and very counterproductive, because employment and production are produced by the medium and small enterprises, not by the big guys in the Wall Street.
We've been fooled all along then, because many people are under the impression that these massive companies are the ones that are providing, subhanAllah. So hopefully that can all change in the future. What general recommendations would you give the business world in these difficult weeks and months ahead?
Well, definitely one thing that we need to realize is to rise up in our finance. The finance sector needs a lot of reform, needs a lot of really revamping, complete revamping and reorientation. Since the late 80s, I should say since even the middle 80s of the past century, we tend to think that the finance on its own can create wealth. The fact is that it does not create wealth. Wealth is created by small and medium enterprises, by big companies, by big factories, by farms, in agriculture, in industry, and in business. Wealth is not created in finance. Although we may think that, oh, I made a lot of gain, but this gain is in fact a loss of others. That's basically what it is. It is a transfer of wealth from some people, from the losers to the gainers or to the winners. It is not really creation of new wealth. So we need to realize that Bitcoin does not create wealth. That's the final analysis. Okay? And the same thing, options and futures do not create wealth. There was an article a few years ago, which was interesting. A friend of mine sent it to me. In fact, he cut it from the Financial Times and sent it to me. And it was interesting because I was chanting that song for at least 30 years now in Islamic finance. The song that to create wealth, you need to go and support the real sector, the sector of production and of exchange, not the virtual sector. The article was about imagining that or describing the future contracts and the future market as if we have hoping that 1,000 ton or kilo, say, of wheat are going to be produced 6 months from now. We don't know whether they really are going to be produced or not, but hoping they are going to be produced and they will be in the warehouses after 6 months. So we start now, make transactions on them and sell and buy from the morning until the evening. But at the end of the day, we end up some people making more money and some other people losing exactly the same amount. The only winner on the two sides are the brokers. They got commission from both sides only. But in the final analysis, the hope of the 1,000 kilo of wheat is the same, is not going to be changed. And we may not even produce it, especially if we get farmers, instead of producing wheat, sitting on computers and clicking, making gains from the future market. So if we make farmers to only make profit from the future markets, who's going to produce the wheat then? So we need to realize, and this is the major message of Islamic finance, that finance the real sector. Do not put money, do not put your assets, do not put your funding into the virtual sector, into futures, into options, into Bitcoin and other virtual currencies. Put your money in financing real production, in farms, in factories, in business, consumers to buy goods, all these real transactions. So in this regard, that's the nature of Islamic finance. It is finance for the real market because it is channeled. In finance, in Islamic finance, we don't give money. What do we give? We give a car. We give a consumer a refrigerator. We give them other items, clothing or others, any other items, including food. And we finance because, so we finance exchange, including consumers. We finance production in farms and in factories, but because for each finance transaction in Islamic finance, the condition there ought to be with it a real transaction. You cannot finance, give money, and then the other guy will do whatever he likes to do with it. No, instead, we finance through sale on credit. We finance through sale on prepayment sale and delivery later. We finance leasing. You buy the asset and lease it. We finance creating new companies through whether IPOs, common stock companies or personal companies. This is the financing. It has to go through the real transaction contract. It cannot go only as financial transaction, giving money or credit. We don't give credit in Islamic finance. We give goods and services. So this is where we need, this is the message of Islamic finance that gives, I mean, it turned out that we don't have adequate production of medical supplies, especially protection supplies, like gloves and masks and all these. We didn't have enough production of them. We didn't have enough ventilators. Why? Because we were directing our resources to be used in the virtual economy, virtual finance. Okay.
And finally, our last question, Dr. Monzer. What advice would you give individuals to help them cope with this crisis and recover after the lockdown is over? And what should be the focus of charitable organizations in this crisis?
I think this is being done already, or at least answered already. All Muslim charities have become now very active, especially it comes with the month of Ramadan. So giving, the month of Ramadan really is the month of giving, the month of caring about others. I mean, we fast, and we learn what is the meaning of empty stomach. That's the idea of it. Otherwise, I mean, what is the benefit of fasting? We learn the meaning and we get the feeling of empty stomach. With that, then, increasing charity, looking after the people who are not visible, the people, because you see in the Quran, there is a statement that you may think of them as rich, because they don't show that they are really poor. They don't beg, they don't look after getting something, but they really are in reality in need. Now here is where the Islamic charities especially that are used to deal with this concept, looking after what is called the hidden families. These hidden families that they suffer hunger, but you don't really see them outside. You don't feel of them unless you search for them yourself. So this is what the especially the Islamic charity, but all charities really now are going into that direction. So this is one. Second, please, for everybody, and I give it like really a recommendation for everybody and for all small businesses, do not back up from benefiting from the support that governments are offering. Even if it were at a future interest, inshallah, make your effort and your best effort that you will not reach that long. If interest will be after 2 years, whatever it is, say 2%, or in France, for instance, for small businesses, they are giving now loans, the government. I mean, government guaranteed loans, but by banks. The banks are giving the loans at 0% for 2 years, and after the 2 years, it will be 0.25% per annum. Take these loans, it is okay. It is permissible to take these loans if you are in need. If your small business is in need, do not lay off employees. Work with them to stay on and take these loans or grants. There are, in some countries, there are grants to small businesses. Make full benefit of these grants and loans, even the loans that will tell you after a certain period of time, there will be interest charged if you don't make payment. Try to make payment, of course, during the grace period, but benefit from these and keep your employees on, keep your business on, and don't let it die. This is very important for small businesses and small, medium businesses, that if you need to take these loans, take them. At a time of emergency like the time we are in, it is permissible to take these loans and make a plan to pay them before the interest starts triggering. Before it triggers, try to pay them. But even if you could not, then with your best effort, God forgives. Maintain your business on. Don't let it die. Maintain your employees, because they are also people like you and like me. So they need also to live on. So maintain it and go on, inshallah, things will be improving. And definitely we will open up soon.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair, Dr. Monzer. That was very interesting, and I think all of us have benefited and learned something from that today. Inshallah, we can hopefully have future interviews with you on certain things. Jazakallah khair today for your time, and Ramadan Mubarak to you and your family. And I will leave it, unless you want to say anything else to our audience. I will sign off.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Nicola, and thank you for your help, and thanks, of course, to About Islam. I'm very happy to be with you again, and I will be with you, inshallah, in the future.
Inshallah, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.